First, I think it's very important to know that the COVID-19 pandemics just has accelerated certain trends which we had seen before and which actually were discussed in Davos this year, like the lack of inclusion, the lack of paying sufficient attention to the environment. So what we will see now is the acceleration of those trends, and of course, a unique opportunity to reset our global agenda, to do something about all those negative developments. I include also the lack of international cooperation. Because if we don't address those issues, we will end up in a much worse world than we are today. So let's use this window of opportunity and let's recreate a global framework which really is in line with the requirements of a society in the 21st century.
Klaus, it was day 2 of our coverage in January that we really started asking questions in Davos about coronavirus, and it wasn't obvious then that the virus would bring the global economy to its knees. You spent years debating the globalization models. Is it clear, because of coronavirus, that the planet is just too interconnected?
I think we have two aspects actually contradicting each other. On the one hand, the virus, the pandemics, has reminded us how interdependent we are in the world, how we are part of a global destiny, a common global destiny. On the other hand, the virus also has demonstrated that we need more resilience. And interdependence also creates greater risks. So what we will see is hopefully, on the one hand, more globalization. On the other hand, probably with the redefinition of supply chains and so on, we will also see some aspects of deglobalization.
You mentioned global coordination a moment ago, and clearly as we progress, questions are going to be asked, how do we avoid a pandemic, a health crisis like this in future? What do you think the answer is going to be? Because it feels as though there's more of a breakdown in communication right now than anything.
Yes, I think we have become very much aware that we need to build a more resilient world. And the virus is just a call for action. You have other big risks which we have alerted to in our risk report, like a cyber attack and, of course, the whole issue of global warming. So I hope that this COVID crisis will create sufficient drive for each government to be more open for global cooperation, because without the global cooperation, we cannot solve those issues which have a dimension which is transborder and doesn't stop at any artificial line.
I want to ask you specifically about China, because it was back in 2017 at the World Economic Forum that the Chinese President Xi Jinping cast himself as a protector of globalization. Very important moment, because at the same time President Trump was on the megaphone talking about economic nationalism. That said, as we progress and we ask questions about the origin of the virus, how do you think China has been damaged by this virus in terms of its standing in the world community?
What we see now is that China has moved out first, and of course, based on its specific structure, governmental structure, it was able to apply, let's say, more directive measures to get the virus under control. So what we see now is China moving very fast out of the crisis, other countries lagging behind, other countries which have more emphasis on personal freedom, have more difficulties to get control over the virus. So the risk which we have is that this virus will even create more of global animosity, if I may say so. And we have to do everything, and hopefully, as part of the global reset, to recreate the dialogue, because the challenges, as I said already, are global and require global cooperation to be addressed.
How concerned are you about the animosity between the US and China? Because as we wrapped up Davos, it felt as though we were making progress on the trade front. But here we are now, a few months later, and it feels as though we've rewound even on that front.
Yes, that's true. But I think it's not only the trade issue. It's, as I mentioned, the whole repatriation of production capabilities, the wish of each country to become less dependent on other countries, as far as crucial elements of the economy, like in the health systems, are concerned. Then, of course, we have also a widening gap between the emerging countries and the more advanced countries again. So the tendency is that global tension will increase. But again, we have to lean back. We have to make every effort to bring the people around the same table to have some discussing those issues, which actually are essential if we don't want to have an intergenerational revolution long term, because the young generation will certainly remind us of any mistakes which we may make, and we see it already in certain social unrest movements around the world.